This is Gemara in Gittin, Daf Nun Gimel, and we're holding in the bottom of Nun Beis Amid Beis. We are at the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah on the bottom of Nun Beis Amid Beis, as we continue the different takanas, the Rabbanan that were made for the benefit of the people. Says the Mishnah, Hamitamev, Amidamev, Aminasich. 3 ways of damaging someone else. Either you're metame, you contaminate their produce, or midame, you mix a truma into their produce, thereby making the truma only be able to consume debaya kayin, or minasech, you make one's wine yayin nesech, wine that was poured for idolatry, if this was done by accident pater, but b'mezid, then it is chayiv. So says the Gemara, Itmar. Let's deal with the third of these cases. Minasich, if someone made one's wine to yayin nesech. Rav Omar, what does this mean? Minasich mamish. The wine was poured to avodah zarah. Ushmol Omar, no, ma'arif. It means it was mixed with yayin nesech, and thereby made it not kosher. Says the Gemara, according to Shmuel, it was just mixed with wine that's not kosher. Why did he not say, like Rav, that it was menasich, was actually poured for avodah zarah? Amar l'chayil explained, menasich kim lebedi raminei. If one pours someone else's wine for avodah zarah, we have the classical rule of kim lebedi ramine, meaning kim lebedi ramine is anytime you have two punishments, you only get the more severe. So if Reuven goes and takes Shimon's wine and pours it la'avodah zarah, Reuven is chayim misa. He just worshipped an idol. So he's chayim misa, therefore he's going to be pater for tashlumim. So says Shmuel, that can't be the case in the Mishnah, because in such a case there will be no monetary obligation. Whereas Rav holds kid Rav Yirmiyah. Rav holds we could say that the case is that he actually poured it to avodah zarah. Why? Like Rav Yirmiyah, Damar Rav Yirmiyah. Mishas ha'agbo dekana. Because if someone picks up his friend's wine, he has made a kinyan. At the moment he made a kinyan, he is obligated to pay him monetarily. Mischayev benafsho, he's only chayev mi. So when lo have ad shas nisach to, he actually pours it le'avodah zarah. Says the Gemara, l'mandamar menasech, my time l'amar me'arev, according to Mandamar, according to Rav. Why does he not say like Shmuel that it just mixing the wine for avodah zarah? Rav explains, me'arev, when we're saying that you mixed it with wine that was not kosher, says Rav, hainu midame. That's the same case as midame. What did midame meant? Midame, we translated, meant that you mixed it with truma, you mixed it with something that only can be eaten by a kohen. So says Rav, if the case is that you mixed it with wine that is tameh, that's the same concept as midame, that you're ruining his entity by mixing it with something else. According to Shmuel, he says that no, what does menasech mean? You mixed the two wines together. He says kinasahu. The reason is that it is a special kinas, and therefore kinasa lo yalfinon. Look at Rashi on the last wide line. It says Shmuel kinasahu, explains Rashi. Mitame umedame dibemezir chayiv is a kinasahu. That's a fine. The hezek sheni nikr lo yishmei has a very important to your side. Anytime one damages someone in an unrecognizable fashion, calls to mind those in Sidaim, not real damage, a damage that no one could notice. Such a damage is not really damaging. Lo yishmei hazik. So why would one be chayiv? One would be obligated because of kenas. Midrabanan, the rabbis came along and rabbinically said they levied a fine that you have to pay. So it says Shmuel, you can't learn one from the other because both cases of kenasim, and the rule is we don't learn one case of kenas from the next. Ask the Gemara in the second line of the Gimel and Aleph, L'mandamar kenasim kenasa. According to Mandam, that says we do indeed learn kenas from each other. Kolhani lama li. Why do we need all 3 cases in the Mishnah? Explains the Gemara Tzricha. Why? If we learned the case of mitame when one invalidated makes made someone else's item impure. So eat truma if it's truma amina mishum come afsela legamri. You would think you're obligated because if you take someone else's truma and you make it tamei, you're making it completely invalid. So that's the reason why you're obligated to pay. Vima tamei chulin, and if it's chulin that you're making tamei, not holy items, mishum, there's a special din derabanan. Mishum also legram tamei chulin. You're not allowed to make chulin tamei shabbat Eretz Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. Aval, however, 6 lines down, midame, if one mixes produce with something that is a truma, emalai, I would think that's a level of a hezek shein and a nikr, then maybe you're not obligated. It still has the sanctity of truma, it's not treif. You just have to sell it to a kohen, so you took a little bit of a loss. I would think you're not obligated. V'yashmina midame, and if we just learned the case of midame, mixing items together, I would have thought mishum d'shchicha, it's common. It's common, things happen, things get mixed together. Aval, and Rashi points out, who cares that it's common? It's not like, it's a regular mishap. Rashi says, because we're dealing with a case of din d'Rabbanan, and therefore, milsa the shchicha talking Rabbanan in such a scenario. But to make something impure, I would think that maybe that is not governed by the same din. If we spoke those two cases out, in both those cases, there's no real penalty. It's all monetary. There's no obligation of death. There's no kimle b'diramine. The one is chayiv, misa, the kimlev raminei malay. I would think that maybe the din, the monetary obligation, would not apply. Kamash la and kid Rav Yirmiyah. So the chiddush of the Mishnah would be in that third case, like Rav Yirmiyah, that one would indeed picks it up. He's kainit and he's only chayiv ben avshei. He's only chayiv misa when he pours it to the avodah zarah, and that's the reason why the Mishnah would have to write all 3 cases. Says the Gemara Ulaha, and according to this opinion, Tani Avua de Rav Avin, that Ravua de Rav Avin learned by Yishayna. I mean, originally they would say Amitam, Ev Aminasech. And then Chazru Laimar Afamitam. The Braisa, the Mishnah of Rav Avin learned, the Braisa, that there was a progression. That originally they said if one makes something else tamei, if one mixes something or pours it with the zara, then there's an obligation. Only later on did they create the din of midame. Did they create the din if I mix truma in? So Kalani Lamali, according to that way of learning, what is the reason why we have all 3 cases in our Mishnah? Says the Gemara, Sricha di ashvin midame, Mishum Tlakim Lebed and again, basically what's going on over here is as you change the sequence, it changes up the chedushim, because if I already know case A and B, now case C is going to be pashit. So once I knew case A, I would thought because there's no kim lebediramine. So chedush is case B of menasech, even when there's kim lebediramine, even when there is a potential death penalty, still one has to pay. V'yash mina menasech, but just in the case of menasech, I would have thought mishkum ma'afsad legamri, you're completely destroying it. That wine is treif. You still can at least get benefit from it. There's no Isser Hana. Emaloi. V'yashvina Hani in the case of Tuma and the case of Yaines, the Hefsin Meruba. It's a big loss. Aval Medame, the Hefsin Muat, as we've spoken now. Why? Because you can sell it to a Kain. Emaloi. Sricha, therefore the Mishnah had a list all the cases. And that's really part A of today's shir, which is really dealing with the sequence of the Mishnah, different cases in the Mishnah. The machlekes Rav and Shmuel pertaining to how precisely to learn the case of Menasech and how it filters out throughout the Gemara in the reason why the Mishnah listed all 3 cases. And the Gemara continues into now really the din in the Mishnah. What was the din in the Mishnah? The din was if it was the din b'shoigig, then you're potter. B'mezid, you are obligated. So Amar Chizkiah, we're about 25 lines to the bottom. First word in line is Emaloi. Comes along Chizkiah and he teaches Devar Torah Midaraisa Echad Shoigig V'echad Mezid Chayif. Chizkiah midaraisa, whether one damaged on purpose or not is chayif. My time, what's the reason? Hezek sheinu nikr shmei hezek. On a biblical level, min ha-Torah we paskin hezek sheinu nizik nikr, is indeed hezek. Umatam amru b'shoigig potter. So why lemaisa are we saying that if it was done b'shoigig you're potter? Kidei sheidiu, so that he tells us. We're giving a tour, because if not, we're never going to know. No one's ever going to tell someone else that they by accident mixed items together and matamit, poured it avodah zara, because then they're going to be obligated. If we give them a free pass when it's b'shaygig, then it will allow them the opportunity to tell us what happened. Says the Gemara, that's such a good reason. So why don't we say the same thing by b'mezid? Why don't we say that if it was a din, if it was done on purpose, the same thing should apply. What should apply? What should apply is that we should give them a free pass so that they should come afterwards and tell us about it. Says the Gemara, no, that's impossible. We can't do that. Why not? The person is damaging us. He's coming and he's damaging b'mezid. So then what? Can it be that he's not going to tell him? Why else would he do it? Meaning, if the guy is coming to mess the other guy up, of course he's going to tell him about what he's doing. So we don't need to give him the free pass. Rav Yochanan says, Rav Yochanan, no. It is potter. Out of the coin. So that's why we created a tour, the two opposite ends of the spectrum. And now we continue with the Gemara, continuing into this machlokes, whether indeed Hezek Shein Nikar is Shmei Hezek or not. So says the Gemara Tanan. Again, we have a machlokes whether Hezek Shein Nikar is indeed Shmei Hezek or not. And now the Gemara is going to continue by trying to prove whether this is true or not. So Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah that we're going to get to tomorrow or the day after. Tanan, ha-koyahanim shepiglu b'mikdash. If koyahanim were pigloi, what does pigl mean? Pigl means whether there was a machshava zara, whether one during any part of the avodah had an inappropriate thought or action, the halach is that invalidates the carbon. So a koyin that was pigla b'mikdash, that he brought a carbon that was pigl, that had an inappropriate thought, mezidin chayavim. If the koyin did it mezid, he is obligated. V'tani Allah, and we learned over there, mimnei tikkun oilam, what is the reason why he is chayiv mimnei tikkun oilam? Because we don't want Adam to do this, so we tell them if they do this, they're going to be chayiv to stop them from doing such. Says the Gemara, if you're going to go with the first opinion, if you're going to explain not like Rav Yochanan, that Hezek like Chizkiah, that Hezek Shein Nikar is Shmei Hezek, so then Hay Shoyagin Peturin, they tikkun oilam yibayilei. So then what is the reason why the Bryce is saying that when the kohen does it b'shoygeg, it's potter? If he did it b'mezid, he's chayif. Why are you telling me that b'shoygeg it's potter and they take an oilam yibayilei? That the brisa should have been told. Why does the brisa say that b'mezid they're chayiv they take an oilam? It should have said the flip side. It should have said b'shoygeg they're potter they take an oilam. Meaning, if hezek shein nikar shmei hezek, that means this koyin that's doing this terrible action by bringing a carbon pigel, which is an unrecognizable damage that the owner can't really see what he's doing, and really he's chayiv. So what does that mean? It means if he does it b'mezid, the obligation is biblical, midaraisa, not maybe tikkun oilam. What's the tikkun oilam? What's the free pass? The tikkun oilam is the reverse. The tikkun oilam is in the case of shoygig. We're giving him a free pass. Why are we giving him a free pass b'shoygig? So that'll tell us what's going on. Says the Gemara, you're right. Hachanami kamar. This is really included. Mezidin chayavim. You have to read it into the Mishnah. They're chayav mezid. Hashayigin, they're potter. Why? They taking an oilam, so there is no kasha. Continues the Gemara, Master Rav Elazar, 8 lines on the bottom. He said malacha b'mechatas. Someone does malacha with mechatas, the ashes of the bara aduma, the mechatas. What you're not allowed to do any malacha which we've learned in Sukkah, the great lengths that they go to ensure that no malacha is done with this water, the great lengths they go to make sure that it's with utmost purity. Ubeparas chatas, or with the chatas, the para aduma itself. What's the halacha? Pater b'dini adam v'chayiv b'dini shamayim. So proves the Gemara v'amrid hezek shein nikar shmei hezek like Chizkiah b'dini adam nami lechayiv. There should be an obligation midaraisa b'dei adam who meislav who mefarkla. He answered 3 lines to the bottom. Baruch shechnisa l'rivka manasha tinoik v'tidosh. The case is that the cow entered into the corral in order to do what? To tinoik, to nurse, v'tidosh, and as well to thresh. So since this action does not make it not kosher for the bar aduma, and it's only his kavana that made it puzzle for the para aduma. Therefore, he's pater medine adam. Mechatos, what is the case? Sheshakov and mishkalo is that he weighed weights with it. And in such a scenario, again, he used the water for a weight. So such an action is not considered malacha on the daraisa level. And therefore, with regard to Hazik Sheina Nikar, he would not have to pay bidini adam. But it's not necessarily a kasha as to Chizkiah holds Hazik Sheina Nikar Shmei Hazik. Asks the Gemara, Rava taught, we just said if you use the water of the mechatas to weigh weight with it, it sounds like it's not such a big deal, and you would not be chayiv b'dini adam, and even according to Chizkiah that holds Hazik Sheina Nikar Shmei Hazik, you wouldn't be chayiv. So the Gemara now, as we turn over to Ningimlam Abiz, asks, according to this opinion, what about Rava that says if one is shagma mishkalois, it is kshera, it is kosher. So asks the Gemara, how could that be the case? If this is the case, then it wouldn't work, because the Bryce is talking about a case in which the water of the mechatos was used, which would passel it. But if this was the case, according to Rav, it doesn't passel at all. Says the Gemara, loikasha ha begufan ha bekenegdon. There's two ways of using water to weigh with it. Either I can take my cup and I can put the item inside of it and use displacement. That's begufan, that's using the water itself. Whereas, that's what Rav Elazar in the previous price said it's possible. Whereas, Rav is talking about Bekenegdo, when I use it on one side of the weight and the other side of the weight, I have an item. That's going to be the case of Rav that says it's going to be kosher. Ask the Gemara, Begufan, then Maisa Kavid Behu. Then you did an actual action with it. So now we go back to square one, that according to Chizkiah V'ezjin Anikar Shmei Hazik, then Bedini Adam Nami Lachayiv, because you're using the item itself for an action. Says the Gemara, you're right, both cases are talking about not to use the water itself for displacement, but rather Bekenegdon, they used it as a weight. The difference is the Rice is talking about a case where he was Mesiach Das, and therefore he did not watch it. If you don't watch the Para Aduma carefully every moment, the lack of cognizance while using it, that is what passes it. Whereas the case of Rava that said it's Keshera is that you were cognizant, you were watching it, you were not Mesiach Das the entire time. Continues the Gemara with another kasha, 7 lines down, the 2 dots. Masiv Rav Papa asks Rav Papa, Gezel matveya v'nifsal truma. If someone stole a matveya, someone stole a coin, and v'nifsal, and it was no longer in circulation, the government says that this coin is not going to be used anymore. Or truma, someone sold truma v'nitmis and became tami. Chametz, someone sold chametz, arvelav pesach, whole entities, that these items have no value anymore. Still, Oimer loy, he's allowed to take the item, let it go back to the owner and say to him, Harei shalcha lefanecha, it's yours, and he's pater. You steal chametz, Pesach passes by, I could take that item and I could give it back to the owner, say, here's your box of Cheerios. It's chametz shavuot Pesach and you're not allowed to get hana. I returned the item, I didn't mind. So I asked the Gemara 1 second. According to Chizkiah, hi, Gazlanhu, you have to pay for it because you stole something. Even though it's not recognizable, only in din it became Chametz Shavuot Pesach. You should have to pay. Says the Gemara, Tiyufta, that is indeed a kasha, that is either Tiyufta on Chizkiah. After we slug up Chizkiah, says the Gemara 12 lines down, first word line is lema kitanoi. Let's say that in reality the machlokes Chizkiah and Rav Yochanan whether Hazik Sheina Nikar Shmei Hazik or not is a machlokes tanoim. Says the Gemara Menasech. Says the first price Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, so my labak. What is this machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda with regard to the case of shoygig? They both agreed if it means it's chayiv, but shoygig it's pater. Demar Savar, says the Gemara, Rameir holds Hazik Sheina Nikar Shmei Hazik, and that's the reason why Rameir holds that b'mezid is going to be chayiv, b'shogig it's going to be. That's why Rameir holds that in all cases is going to be chayiv. Umar so Rav Yehuda is lo Shmei Hazik, and that's the reason why Rav Yehuda holds that b'shogig it's going to be pater. So why b'mezid is going to be chayiv? It's only going to be a kenas when he does it b'mezid. Says the Gemara, nothing doing. Amram Nachman Yitzchak, no. The Kuli Amar really, I'll tell you, everyone, both Rav Yehuda and Rav Meir, could be of the opinion A different big sugi in Shas. Do we make a kenas in the case of shoygig or to the case of mezid? Demar savar. The chachamim, Rameir is going to hold Concise shoygig to mezid. Omar savar Zudo like Concise shoygig to mezid. Says the Gemara. Okay, so you answered about the machlekes Rameir and Rabbi Yehuda is not the machlekes of Yochanan and Chizkiah, and really they all could agree as a on Nikor or not, and it's a different machlekes of Concise shoygig to mezid. Says the Gemara. I'll ask you a different kasha. V'ramu Rameir Rameir. I'm going to ask you a stira within Rameir and Rav Yehuda itself. The Tan you learned in a brisa. Hamivashel b'Shabbos, a brisa we learned in Masechah Shabbos. So one who cooks on Shabbos b'shogig if he does it by accident. This is a very famous machlekes of Meir and Rav Yehuda, all the way down l'alach l'maisa negeya to Maisa Shabbos when someone does an act of Isser on a Shabbos. Hamavashel b'Shabbos, someone who cooks on Shabbos b'shogig if it was by accident, you're allowed to eat it. But mezid if it was on purpose, lo yechal divri Rabbi Meir, which is that's opinion Rabbi Meir. Rav Yehuda Omer b'shogig you're allowed to eat it yochal l'motzei Shabbos, and b'mezid lo yechal oy lamis. Rav Yochanan Sandler Omer b'shogig yochal l'motzei Shabbos la chayrim v'lo loy to other people, not you. B'mezid lo yechal lamis, but b'mezid you can never eat it. Loy loy v'loy la chayrim. So first of all, just to parenthetically point out, Rav Yehuda that says b'shogig yochal l'motzei Shabbos b'mezid lo yochal oilamis, that is the ikar psak halacha. Even though we are generally machmir, but b'makom the bir halacha quotes the guy in the paskins like Rav Yehuda, and therefore in a matzav of sayrech one could be seimich on Rav Yehuda. The classical case of a shoygig is one doesn't know, he just made a mistake. He oimer mutter is a shoygig, so he by accident did chazara be'isser, he put his chalent on without a blech or something like that. The din is going to be b'shoygig according to Rav Yehuda, then he's going to be allowed to eat it. Excuse me, I said that incorrectly. The ikra Allah is like Rav Yehuda. The Gain's chiddush is that he's soymich on Rameir. That's the chiddush of the Gain. Excuse me. That b'shogig you're going to be allowed to eat it, and therefore that shalom will even allow you to eat it on Shabbos itself. But back to our story over here. Excuse me. Sorry for that, and we're running late. Kasha d'Rameir, Kasha d'Rav Yehuda. We have a stira in both opinions. And the first brisa, Rameir seemingly held that there is going to be a kanasa for b'shogig is a problem. B'shogig kansu shogig got to mezid, like the Mar explained. And Kasha Rav Yehuda. Then the first brisa he said there's not going to be a kanasa, and here it seemingly is. Explains the Gemara. With this we conclude Rameir like Kasha. Why? Ki kanis b'drabanan. But the Raisa like Anis, Rameir says you only kanas in a case of din dirabanan, like in the case of damaging your friend's stuff. Why? This is a general rule in all kanasim. We're more machmir on din dirabanan because people take dirabanans lightly. Whereas in a din daraisa, like case of shoygig, like case of cooking on Shabbos, we do not have to make a kanas. That's Shita Rameir. Asks the Gemara V'Menasech Daraiso the kakanis, but minasech zidin darais, and there is a kanas. Misham the chomer of chavim is because that's very chomer. So we have three levels. We have avodas chavim, which is very chomer. You can have a kanas. We have Shabbos, which everyone knows is chomer, is not going to be a kanas according to Rav Meir. And then we have regular items, the rabbanans, which needs a kanas. The kanis like. So Rav Yehuda like kasha. Why not? Kilo kanis b'derabbanan b'daraisa kanis. Says Mar v'amenach l'raisa kanis. Now the opposite extreme. Everyone is going to be so separate from him. Therefore, we don't even need to have a kanas because it's so chomer. We're going to stop over here and we'll continue this Astira, Rameir, and Rav Yehuda in the next year, B'siyata Dishmaya.